And during the same period of time, NACA had an open house one weekend. And I headed over to NACA at one of the wind tunnels because I'm interested in aircraft and all. And in the wind tunnel was what I described as a flying saucer. There was no doubt about the form of the craft that was there. 25, 35 feet in diameter, probably 4 or 5 feet in depth and thickness, but then it just tapered down on the ends. Went to the Pentagon for a job interview. The major that was interviewing me brought up this subject, had nothing to do with what I wore. He said, "Do you believe that people who existed in that area would have a closer relationship to God than we do because of our limited intelligence and insight? And these people obviously are far more advanced than we are." And I thought, what's that got to do with what we're talking about? I'm coming here interviewing for a military job. And we just kind of left it at that. I said, yes, obviously, I think so. And we began talking about flying saucers, and I got the typical nebulous but not evasive answers. And one of the things he interviewed, and this goes back quite a while, now there are certain things that do remain in my memory very vividly, and we were talking about different aircraft and UFOs, and we were kind of blending the subject in together very nicely. And I said, what about the aircraft in the future? What are they going to be like? And he said, we have aircraft now. He said, we have vehicles or aircraft now that we could actually fly, but they are so unique and so unorthodox, not conventional. No, I guess he was referring to the fact no rudder, no tail, no wings or whatever, that we don't even bother putting them out because the director of NASA at Langley. I'm trying to date this to the best of my ability, around 56, 57, something like that. I was stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky. A lot of the talk that went around Fort Knox was of a P-51 that had scrambled before I got there. Went up after an object that had appeared on radar, and the tower had asked him to go up. The P-51 went up, began describing what he had seen, and then disappeared. They never found him. I don't know whether they found pieces of the aircraft, but I don't recall that they even found pieces of the aircraft. I was at Fort Knox up until about 11 o'clock one night, and then got in my car and drove to Fort Campbell, where I had some collateral duties also. Got into Fort Campbell about 1 o'clock in the morning. There was a little diner that stayed open all night, and as I went to the diner for coffee and donuts that night before I went back to the barracks, I noticed it was pretty full. And I thought, well, this is kind of strange. And the MPs were in town. And I said, what's going on? Have had an accident, aircraft down or something like that? And no, everybody's real excited that a flying saucer had landed behind a nearby farmhouse. And from bits and pieces, I was just trying to pull in as much as I could. And they said, you can't get there because they've got it cordoned off. The MPs have totally surrounded the property. And from what we've gotten from the scene at this point, which is like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, was that this flying saucer had landed. The creatures in the flying saucer had jumped over the house and had landed in the front of the house. The people in the house were frightened to death, absolutely going bananas. One of them grabbed a shotgun, and as one of the creatures went up to the front door to investigate, he fired a shotgun through the screen door. The people, or the creatures from the flying saucer, decided this was not a very good place to be. So they ran back out, they jumped back over the house, went to the back wherever the flying saucer was located, and took off and disappeared. MPs were there, and I'm sure this isn't a military report somewhere. They were from Fort Campbell, because this is the nearest base, and the ones that were outside were from the base also. So they were from Fort Campbell, because the state police were out there also. So if we had to track this, it was in the Louisville Courier-Journal, and with somebody out there attempting to ridicule everything that's done, it makes it difficult to do a story and have a credible reaction to it when somebody else out there, like politicians are doing now, trying to find fault with precise words and any innuendos or anything else. So I think a lot of the people who choose stories now look at it, I think, from a monetary point of view. And I think there's some sort of an embargo somewhere down the line that you don't mention this. Let's just pass on it.